That's correct.
Okay. All right, well then I will call the October 20th meeting of the Environmental Action Committee to order. I'm Sarah Marsh, I'm Chair of the committee and Representative Ward 1 in Fayetteville City Council. Let's start with introductions.
I'm Kelly McGulick, science teacher at House Hall, Ward 3.
I'm Joanna Pollard. I live in Ward 2, an environmental dynamics student at the University of Arkansas.
I'm Peter Nierengarten, the city's Director of Sustainability and Resilience and the staff representative on the Environmental Action Committee. Staff representative to the Environmental Action Committee.
I'm Garnet Wise with Waste Management, Sustainability Services. I'm the industrial rep.
I'm Mike Emery. I live in Ward 4. I'm a citizen at large member committee, and I work for the university.
I'm Connie Crisp. I'm a citizen at large.
Richard Russell, citizen at large.
Okay, we've had some technical difficulties at the city today, which has prevented us from having the nice agenda that we normally have. So just to kind of review what we're going to be covering tonight in old business, we'll be talking about our wildlife habitat certification project and LID sites and map. And then in new business, we'll be talking about LID and city infrastructure projects and the Fayetteville Star certification.
I might suggest that since the wildlife habitation project was Dana's item to cover, maybe we
swap
swap
those.
those two under old business.
Are there any objections to that?
Nope.
Okay, all right, well then let's start with the LID sites and map. Who has that?
That would be mine. At our last meeting, we talked about a myriad of different ideas related to LID, need for greater education on LID, and where we landed was an idea for creating a list of all the, or as many of the LID sites as we could come up with in town, and using those to potentially create some sort of a guide or tour to help showcase some of the LID work that has already happened and will continue happening in Fayetteville. So I got about 11 different sites from several of you, and a few of these are mine as well. Thank you to Kelly and to Connie and Dana for all helping me track down the first 11 sites. I would say this list is definitely a work in progress and by no means exhaustive. One of the ideas I believe that I had thrown out at the last meeting was the potential for creating some sort of a bicycle tour of the LID sites. And so what I had our new bike coordinator do is throw the sites on the city's already existing bicycle map, just so we can kind of get a spatial feel for where the 11 sites that we have listed so far are in relation to our bicycle infrastructure in our city. And again, just kind of get a feel for where all where they lay. And again, I'll say this is not an exhaustive list. I know there's lots of other LID sites. I was just thinking of this morning the potential for adding some of the storm drain art that we have in our downtown area, potentially to the list as potential sites. But mainly, I just wanted to throw this out as a concept, an idea, see if it was something that you all were interested in pursuing further. I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time, putting together a map if it wasn't anything that wasn't something that you all were particularly interested in supporting and pushing forward as a potential project for this group. So I'll open it up to questions or comments from there.
How hard is it to park a copy of this on the city website somewhere once we get it where we think it's?
Not very difficult. I think that another potential avenue would be hard copies of the map that could potentially live at the visitor center. That's something we could definitely discuss with advertising promotions to see if they're interested in helping out with some of the production costs of a potential hard copy map.
I was just wondering if there's a way to, put, LID and low impact development and different, keywords or however you do that, so that, if somebody was searching for something like that, they could find it, or maybe somehow have it linked to, zoning and planning, or, some different ways to get to it.
Yeah.
If somebody was interested.
Yeah, we're undergoing a fairly comprehensive website reorganization, new web content management software at the city. So we wouldn't be able to likely get it on the city's website until probably February or March of next year, based on the latest schedule that I've seen for that project. But I think ultimately, yeah, it could definitely live in a digital format somewhere on the
Give
city's
us a little
website.
bit of time to
Certainly.
go out and search for some more.
Yeah, yeah, I think we definitely would need to add more sites to the list, and I'm not necessarily convinced that laying it out on the city's bicycle map is the best way to do it, but it was just, a starting place.
Are we still planning to have a tour, like take a group of people on a tour?
I think that a tour is definitely an excellent idea. I thought a little bit about potentially doing a tour in lieu of our meeting tonight, but given how dark it's getting early now, it didn't really seem right to try and shoehorn that in this time of year. So I think a tour of some sites might be something, if we're going to do it during this time period, something that would have to wait until the spring when the days start getting longer again.
What order are these in?
They're in no particular order.
Okay.
The order I got them from folks.
I was trying to follow it to see if they were in some kind of
No.
tour order, and I was like, no, you wouldn't go to 3 and then go to 4.
No,
so.
certainly not. And that's certainly something we could.
I have a few comments.
Sure.
I did some research. I took my class, environmental science class, to the Fayetteville Library, and realized that they did not have any signage in place because they're waiting on some funding. And, I mean, it's a shame, so I would like in the time that we're waiting for them to get their signage to maybe have that information available somehow electronically. And I've listed a couple, like the Marion Orton Recycling, am I pronouncing that right? The Marion Orton Recycling Center, Tricycle Farms, Botanical Gardens, Eco Flats has some really cutting-edge landscaping, and the headquarters house. So I think that can add a whole lot into this, but if we could somehow have that information, if it's not signage up. Right now, the only place that I can find, and it's not exhaustive, is Gully Park has fabulous bioswale signage, et cetera. And I would love to see that at other places, but it costs money to get something that will withstand weathering, et cetera.
Yeah, there's actually some signage on site. Which one is it? 3 Mountain Street parking lot, just across the street from this building. There's
Oh, right.
storm drain signage, or some signage related to the parking lot swales there as well.
There's some before and after there.
Yeah, photos on the signage.
You can see what parking lot was before they began the project.
Well, maybe, is this something that we could offer mini grants to help
Be neat, wouldn't it?
pay for some signs, and maybe if they had
Great.
some consistency to them, like our regional
Yes,
wayfinding
love
signs.
those.
Yeah.
That might be helpful. Of course, then where do we get the money to offer the mini grants? And I guess we'd have to get an idea of about how much we would need. I don't know if that's something that, if this were a formal tour, that the A&P Commission might be willing to offer some help with.
How much signal is around this map? Like all these places getting good signal?
Pardon me?
Like
Signal,
Oh,
Let's see.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
pretty good, maybe?
I
What if
was
you,
gonna think all in here would.
What if you tried to somehow make it so that a person shows up near one of these markers,
Yes.
and then they could use their little screen to
We,
create a sign?
they actually, I think the city did that for historical markers. They've got that, I don't know what you call that little square thing.
QR code.
And it's like a walking tour, you just show up and zap your phone and to the building.
And all the info is web-based.
That would be great on the signage.
How does that
That's a
work?
great idea.
So, well, we're looking for, I don't imagine, if I were going to get on a bicycle, I don't imagine that I would be wanting to take this so much as I would like to be able to run down my thing and say, oh, we're getting close to this marker here.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know exactly how that works out, but
I think that's an excellent idea. The bike map version of that actual map folds up to something about that size
Oh,
right
yeah,
there.
that's right.
So
It is different from this.
it's pretty manageable.
Yeah, it is manageable.
Yeah. Well, I guess, who is our target audience here? What are we trying to accomplish with this? Are we trying to educate the general public? Are we trying to reach out to kids? Are we trying to educate developers?
I think it began as a conversation about rewarding people for doing LID. And by having something nice to say, here's a place where this was done. I was thinking in terms of a nice sign like we have out here on the parking lot, but that idea is kind of developing into this other idea.
It is.
Oh, go
There was
ahead.
also, I remember discussion about educating this committee.
Yeah.
too. I think that if we're going to do it in order, that's probably which might,
That's me.
in turn, give us some ideas about how we want to educate other people, or where we want to go with this. Also, I like the idea, and I don't know if this is a good time to put it in, of, I'm looking at this right now. Garnet sent this out about the Mount Kessler Nature Area and doing some kind of a place that shows exactly what LID is. I mean, place you can go and understand what's going on, and that, I just thought that whole idea was wonderful. Do you all know what I'm talking about? We all got a copy of that. So I don't know if that fits in here, but I personally would like to see us all on the same page with LID.
Yeah. Part of it too was to encourage future LID projects in a cost-effective way. And we talked about that. So we thought if we could highlight LIDs that are already happening, then,
Yeah.
It's like a reward in a way
Yeah,
for
so
doing
that kind of
that,
goes
so
along
that
with.
other people will want to do that too,
Do we have a feel for,
your developers.
this is maybe an odd distinction, but do we have a feel for what's outdoor and what's indoor in LID? Low impact development, you ride up on your bicycle on a Saturday, is it something to see and learn about that you have access to, or is it you go in the building and find out about it? I think that's probably
Some of these are outdoor and some of them are indoor, and I wasn't really sure if, like, you mentioned tricycle, and I wanted to kind of mention tricycle, but I was like, is that a development, I was thinking of it more in terms of buildings, but then now I see we've got Villey Park and Wilson Park on here and stuff like that, so. It's like you said, we all need to be on the same page about what we're talking about.
Exactly.
Well, I think our West Side wastewater treatment plant, doesn't that have quite a few rain gardens and things at it? And those are all publicly accessible.
Wetlands and prairies.
Yeah,
yes.
and the Woolsey Wet Prairie, but of course, that's not really.
I'm not as
related
familiar with the
development.
west side plant, but I know the Nolan plant on the east side definitely
Okay.
has several rain gardens that they've constructed.
Maybe
Also-
that's the one I'm thinking of.
The Vol Walker Hall on campus.
What is it?
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't send that. I didn't send any in because I was thinking, well, the ones I know about are so obvious that everybody already knows about them. Because all I could think of about was Vol Walker and then the Fayetteville Public Library. But that, they have a green roof and they did a lot with that reconstruction. That was low impact.
Yeah.
The
There's
architecture
a
building.
stream bank reconstruction through the campus.
Mhm. The Mullins
Very
Creek,
nice.
Yeah.
stream restoration.
But could it be a reward to a developer to have recognition in this way of thinking where it's, you go to you get it electronically when you go near the map, somehow you find the place and you get the information
I think that's really a neat idea.
by signal. And wouldn't they consider that to be a reward or a positive depiction of their efforts?
Well, the other thing is that, like with the Greenway program, when a new business gets Greenway certified, the chamber comes and does a ribbon cutting and does a press event. And maybe that's something that the Environmental Action Committee could come do, a ribbon cutting and a press release, and get them some good press.
Yeah.
That's a great
That's
idea.
a good idea.
I like that.
Well, if I may, when I think of low-impact development, it's more than those little tiny pieces that are rain gardens. It's trying to protect every bit of soil you can, and all the trees you can on the property, which we got rules to follow to make that happen, the tree ordinance and streamside ordinance. And there are places that exemplified, but, and by the way, I was chastised last meeting because I spoke too quietly, and we're all sitting back from these little mics and forget that if you had a mic on a stand, you'd know to talk to it. But anyway, I thought I talked louder than most people, so I can't. But anyhow, a prairie is a good thing to see. I mean, it's now too late for a lot of wildflowers at our prairies, but you can still see the native grass and things like that. And another one that somebody may have mentioned is the church out on Weddington. On the right, it's an alternative church. It's not,
The Unity Church?
yeah, yeah. That whole front section is restored prairie,
That's right. I
and
didn't even think about that.
that's a rain garden.
Mhm.
And that's a rain garden on the property. And then they have little man-made rain gardens up right around the building. Some of you've been there and seen them, I know. But there are a lot of things to see, and I don't know, we can tour them with pictures ourselves. And I have lots of pictures of these areas on Flickr and often post them on Facebook. From the standpoint of just choosing to reserve the lowest part of any given lot as the rain garden site. And you may not need to dig out anything. You might want to put a little berm around the edge of it to hold more water because it's all going there anyway in the natural situation. But quite often they put a rain garden off in some odd place, instead of the natural flow, so it's not captured so easy. But, are these places that you've marked as rain garden sites? That's nice.
As LID.
Yeah, it's low-impact
Or
development.
low
sites.
impact
Yeah.
sites that have actually been called out in the process. So, but,
Okay, so it looks like we want to educate ourselves and others. We want to reward people who do these things. We want to encourage more LID projects. And see, one of the reward strategies was the ribbon cutting or the press release. What other goals and objectives do we have?
That's all I remember.
Okay, so then what are the next steps we want to take on this project?
I guess to keep expanding the list, because I haven't done anything to help yet. So yeah, examples of people or places that have already done it successfully. I think that's one step. As far as educating ourselves, and maybe, I don't know what I don't know yet, but I'm not sure what we would need to do to educate developers and contractors, because I guess the LID elements are optional now, but I wonder what it would take to, make them more attractive, or to, let them know, hey, this isn't really more expensive, or, I don't really know if it is or isn't, but, it may just be it's simpler way. Well, my dad taught me how to do it this way, so I'm always going to do it this way instead of using the LID, methods or whatever. I don't know.
That's a good thought. Are we doing anything right now? Maybe the city already is, because there's that new guidebook that's coming
Yeah,
out, isn't there?
There's a whole
Do
section I think
LID.
that are optional.
Stormwater, the drainage criteria manual has a whole LID section in it.
Does any new developer that comes to town get that and is encouraged to consider it or something like that? That's already going on? Okay.
Who wrote that section in the stormwater? What do you call it?
I want to say it was FTN Associates out of, I don't know if they did it out of their Little Rock office or where they did it
So-
from, but
Is there somebody though that locally who or maybe I was thinking maybe that's an option for someone who can come talk to our group about LID and more about specifically what is recommended in Fayetteville. Because it feels like that, I mean, I think going back to what Connie said, and a few people said, we're not on the same page with what LID is.
Mhm.
So if there was someone, especially locally, there's someone who had something to do with that or could tell more about that, or the Community Design Center is who wrote that LID book, right, or manual or whatever that's
Yeah.
called. Is anyone who helped with that still with the Community Design Center? You know, I don't know who actually worked on it.
Steve, the director, is the same. I believe he's been consistently there since that book was developed. I kind of wonder if a thought might be to take what's in the city's LID manual, you know, because there's a lot of different options in terms of LID treatments, and try and find as much diversity as possible to highlight on the map so that we're not, you know, every site's not a rain garden.
Right.
Yeah.
And, you know, somebody,
Could just be elements, you know, different elements. You know,
Yeah.
'cause not all are going to be.
and I think it's good to have a big list, but I don't think we want to, you know, probably don't want to have like 80 sites on a
Correct.
map. You know, I'm not sure what the right number is, but to me, something maybe in the, you know,
30.
Something doable.
15 to 20-ish range seems doable, because
We may just
Or if we
collect all the information
categorized
we
it.
can and then decide how to cipher
Yeah.
it down. 'cause
it may make sense to get get a fairly exhaustive list, and then
Yeah.
perhaps one of the, I've got this spreadsheet of sites, one of the check boxes could be, you know, what are the LID elements and how does that line up with what's in the city's manual? That can help us narrow
Right.
which ones to actually include on a finished product.
I don't know if this is feasible or not, but I could see where conceivably, you know, you could end up, you know, if you wanted to know where parking lot rain gardens are, you know, it would highlight those. If you wanted to know where, you know, some kind of creative storm swales are, you know, click on that and it'll highlight those. And green roofs, click on that and it'll highlight something else, you know.
And then they
Yeah.
go where they want.
Yeah, so,
Yeah,
but I don't know
That's good.
how complicated that's going to get. Or,
I think we also need to differentiate between public and private so that we don't inadvertently send people traipsing on private property
Right.
to look at their
Right.
stormwater management
Yeah,
strategies.
either that or any ones that are on private property, just make sure we have consent of the property owner.
Yeah.
You know, like I doubt Subaru's too concerned about people coming onto their property and looking at their pervious pavement.
That's true.
Yeah, if it,
I'd probably be happy.
Yeah, okay.
do we have, and see, I may be asking the wrong question, but do we have builders or architects that consistently do low-impact development? In
Modus is
Fayetteville.
pretty good about it.
who's that?
Modus Studio, it's specialized real estate.
Is that the one who do the eco flats
Yeah,
and
they
the
did
Cardinal?
Eco Modern Flats. Dave McKee has a lot of nice strategies on his building on Center Street.
I was just thinking that if we could get somebody in who does that,
Mhm.
uses the suggestions of the city, you know, because I'm assuming nobody has to do this. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay. So, but we've got some people that do and why
Yes.
they chose to do that.
Mhm.
I would be interested in that.
Okay.
Was there talk of like a tour that you and Angela were going to organize or something like that? Like for us?
Yeah, that was the tour that we were gonna do during the meeting, but
Oh, okay.
it's getting dark too
Okay,
early.
gotcha.
So it seems like in the meantime,
Mhm.
we can't do a tour, we could have somebody come speak.
Come and talk to
This
us
is
about
going
it.
to be a multi-month educational experience,
Yeah.
it sounds like.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it might be good to invite the Water Sewer Solid Waste Committee, or maybe even do it through that meeting, because we're talking a lot about these same issues there, because there's a possibility that our stormwater runoff could be considered a point source of pollution at our municipal boundary at some point. And so there is definitely an interest in that committee for treating that water and preventing as much pollutants in it as possible. So maybe this is something we could work together on.
That's good.
Okay, so from here, let's look at setting up a speaker to come and educate us, preferably an architect or designer who uses these strategies, and let's coordinate with the Water Sewer Solid Waste Committee and see if they would like to participate in that. And maybe we could just meet next month at their committee. Well, that's not on the agenda yet for them, but I was going to say maybe we could just combine 2 meetings with one. But what are your thoughts on that, Peter? You're making thoughtful faces.
I don't know, I don't think there's any issue with members of this committee attending that meeting, but there might be other business that you all might want to conduct that wouldn't be appropriate to do during their meeting time. So unless there was nothing else that you all wanted to discuss, I would recommend keeping this meeting time.
Good point. All right, so anything else on that item?
Do you want me to talk a little about my concept about, I know that we're going to talk about the parks plan, right? But you want me to just kind of give my little spiel? I try to email everybody on the distribution list, but I'm not sure if I had everybody or not. Were you on? Okay. It's just kind of a brainstorm that it seems like an opportunity down there at the old South Park, area. Just we've got Mount Kessler, which city parks will be protected. It's got all these different species of critters and things that they're discovering down there, and it's cool. It's going to be a destination because of mountain biking and hiking and other opportunities. And then you got the big sports complex that's going in. And then you're going to have some development that I know Hunter Haynes talked a little bit about 2 or 3 months ago, that Chambers Bank still owns, that somebody's going to develop that. And they were talking about the zoning. And I just thought it'd be cool for Fayetteville to so I don't know if we can, who we could lobby to, or how you would pull it off, but to make that a big low impact development showcase, because it's going to, the whole thing will be like a destination, and it's kind of like a blank canvas now, and I just think it'd be a neat opportunity, and to tie in with the park and the mountain and all the outdoorsy stuff going on, and we're probably already behind the curve almost, because I'm sure people already have plans drawn up somewhere, that none of us know about yet, but
You're in the park itself.
well, and more than just the park, but the actual
But those
commercial
developers,
development.
yeah,
There's
they-
developers, there's going to be residential, and there's going to be different kinds of commercial,
They were at the planning commission a week or 2 ago.
Okay. I knew it was in the works because they spoke to us a
Got
little bit
approved.
about it. Yeah. And so, like, again, maybe we're, too late, but it may also depend on who develops it. This could be something just to lobby them and say, hey, look, here's an opportunity, because, this could be a marketing pitch,
Well,
to,
yeah, I've talked to Hunter about that
Yeah.
initially when we went out and toured the site, and he seemed very receptive to that. That's right up his alley, but I don't know, he doesn't have that much control over what is going to happen there. And I definitely included a lot of LID information in the RFQ for the park developer or the park designers. So that, and I definitely pitched the idea of that being an LID showcase. So those ideas have really, they've been brought up, but I think that we need to keep talking about it, and we need to offer support. And what are your ideas on how we can move it along in that direction?
Well, as I understand, inside the park, the city's park, there's several rain gardens. There's decentralized storm drainage capture, so several smaller ponds rather than one large basin. They're using the flush curbs to allow sheet flow off of parking areas into the rain gardens and the grassy areas. So they are, I think, as the direct result of some of the language you got into the RFP, incorporating several LID elements into the park design. So, I think that the park, in my mind, is definitely, a good place to think about showcasing on any sort of a tour that, a map that this group might eventually come up with.
Yeah. So I think that's cool that they got that into the plan. That's awesome. But I think, is Chambers like the big player in all the other property, or?
Chambers Bank owns the other property at this point, or at least last I heard. I don't know what.
So it might be,
happened since
just to talk to them and Hunter as their consultant or whatever capacity he was in, just to, make it, appealing as possible. I think it would be, a differentiator to set them apart from a lot of other parts of town, and that could be a marketing point for them. So maybe that's who we need to talk to if we're interested in promoting it. And if we can get some traction, then that would become our education opportunity for the rest of the town, and all the traffic that's going to go through, that park and Mount Kessler and all the future retail and whatever else is going in there. That would be our big educational opportunity there, So maybe they can talk to them.
Well, we could certainly invite them to our educational sessions.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they would attend, but it certainly couldn't hurt to extend an invitation.
Okay, who is they? Who is,
Well,
are we talking about?
Chambers,
It's
I guess, is the big-
Chambers Bank and Hunter Haynes is their developer.
Okay, but we're not talking, are they gonna develop the park? Or
No.
are they just?
No, the strategy, I feel good that the strategies in the park are moving along as
Yeah.
planned.
Okay.
That was
All right, so that's
made
fine.
very clear by the city that that was a priority for that park. But it's the adjacent development that was just rezoned, and is now gonna start moving along, that I think we want to be proactive in helping them see the benefits of these strategies and seeing how it can benefit their development as well as our stormwater.
Okay, so in their development, we're talking about a housing development, is that what we're talking about?
It's, part of it is commercial, I believe it, do you remember what it was?
A mix of urban thoroughfare, which is generally commercial.
Neighborhood conservation.
Services, which is a mix of lighter commercial and
Or conservation neighborhood.
residential, and then neighborhood conservation, which is pretty much pure residential.
Mhm.
I suspect
Sounds like a little town.
It's a neighborhood center.
the idea is definitely to have it, neighborhood services, neighborhood scale services be within walking distance of the residential areas, so that you don't necessarily have to get into your car to go, get some food or some groceries or, whatever the services may be. I suspect, I don't know this for a fact, that Chambers Bank is probably not ultimately going to be the developer of the property, that they're looking to sell the property to a developer. And whether or not Hunter continues to be involved in the property after that sale, I think is, I don't know. So I'm not sure
I know that,
how.
he's told me that they are marketing it, or portions of it at least, to groups that I think would be sympathetic to this type of thing, but, it's
still
it's
up in the
private,
air.
it's banking and
Yeah, that's
it's
scary.
profit-driven,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's a whole different ballgame from a municipal project.
How much say does the city have in it?
As long as they comply with our codes,
That's it.
that's it.
Right.
But, we do have the new drainage criteria manual, which offers some pretty good, or at least offsets some of the hard infrastructure that you might have to build by, when you do this low-impact development. So, it was the stuff that we talked through here. So I think it makes it easy to do low-impact development. It's not an added cost for a developer.
So it possibly is more of an educational thing
Mhm.
than to whoever, so that would be a point we could bring in, is the education for whoever the developer happens to be. So it probably won't be the bank.
The bank may be the financer of the development,
Oh, that's
though.
true, okay.
So I don't know how that works. And I think we need to stick with education and municipal projects. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about in the new business was municipal or LAD features being included in municipal projects such as the new sidewalk improvements on South School Avenue. I think that's something that we can have a real impact on And, you know, and then just making sure that we're educating people about what's going to be happening at the park and how it works and how it can benefit other projects. And also just, I think there's a lot of opportunities with homeowners. You know, it's hard to convince a big development corporation to do this at a large scale, but maybe it's easier to help people put a rainwater tank on their house or build a small rain garden or, you know, not pave their driveway. I think there are things like that. If we can educate homeowners on how to save money and better care for their yards in a way that maybe requires less mowing, is better for pollinators. I think that is probably a better opportunity for this group.
Is it, you think it's not appropriate for us to talk to developers, or
No.
just, you just think the other's more bang for a buck or something?
I think that we have a better chance of influencing the other type of projects. But that's not to say we shouldn't try to influence developers. I've certainly talked to them about it. So, and I think the more
There's
they
not
hear
much
from.
that you can do with developers if they follow, it goes back to the city's code.
Mhm.
So as long as they follow the code, so, I mean, the way to really make that would be to change the city's code,
Yeah.
which is more of a process, but it does sound like education, and the more that we do with this, I think that drives the market to show this is what people are interested in. This is important to citizens of Fayetteville, and then developers will respond to that as well. It's kind of two avenues of education or changing code.
And developers like the good press that can come with, like I know LEED, one of the big things that drew more developers to adopt LEED was all the good press that they were getting from it. And, you know, if you look at how much free press Eco-Modern Flats has gotten from their efforts,
Yeah.
you know, I think that we'd have a great deal more influence by going out and doing some ribbon cuttings when people build this stuff, or including them on a tour, or offering an award, or doing a press release. I think that those things do have some value.
Well, there will be times when these developers will have to come before the city council.
Mhm.
So that might be the time when possibly.
Well, actually, no, they won't have to come before the
They
city
won't?
council if they're building, if they're not
If
changing
they-
the zoning,
Oh, okay.
so they don't.
So there's not, okay. I mean, it just seems like it is an opportunity if we could figure out how to put it in. I guess we just need to know as it goes along. At this point, there's nobody building it right now, is that right?
I don't know that any permits have been filed.
They
I
just
like-
did the zoning, right? So
Yeah,
I
we
think
did the
that's
zoning.
first step, and, yeah.
I like Garnet, I like your idea. It just seems like there's still a lot up in the air about that particular development.
Right. I just,
We don't even know who's really doing it.
no, I don't
There may be.
I don't either, but I think by the time we figure it out, they'll already have their plans drawn up.
Right, yeah, I think
They may
they-
already, you know, I don't know. You know, Chambers has probably been talking to people for months and months or years trying to, you know, work this all out, which is fine, you know, but I just would like us to, if there's a way, you know, to influence them, to consider these LID options.
Mhm.
You know, they're out there,
'Cause
and
it sounds like it's gonna be a big development.
yeah, and I think it'd be just a neat opportunity, you know, if we could figure out how to influence them to consider it and to you know, make it a showcase and make it, you know, a selling point for the whole development. You know, especially if they could, maybe this is, you know, maybe 10 different developers, you know, buying different parcels or maybe a lot more. But it'd be neat if there was some consistency, you know, like curbless parking lots and having a consistent look that people would notice, hey, this is different, you know. And then you have some educational signage here and there and things like that. That's why, you know, I just keep thinking it'd be a big opportunity.
Maybe we could just keep our eyes open to, or, you know, our ears open to find out who the developers really turn out to be on that project. And then, you know,
Invite
seize
them.
an opportunity, if there is one, to say, hey, you know, what kind of LID features are you planning with this development? Because we like to do ribbon cuttings, you know, when we have an opportunity to do so, to encourage these types of developments. And maybe that in and of itself would encourage them.
Well, one thing that we could do is we could find out you know, when somebody does file for a permit and they do include some LID features, can we, Peter, what would be the process for getting an alert about that so that we could go do ribbon cutting?
I'd have to visit with engineering on that. It would likely come during their their drainage plan review. I would suspect, which is part of their after they do a large scale. I don't remember if the drainage plan comes with construction plans or if it's earlier during the large scale development plan approval. But at one of those two phases, there's a pretty thorough review of the project and all the details related to drainage. So theoretically, it could be in there, I would think.
No, can I ask too, and again, because I don't know what all I don't know, but, you know, a lot of this in the drainage improvement manual, is that what it's called? You know, has options, LID options, but there's other things that I think are outside of that scope, I think, like the green roof, you know, at the library and different buildings. That's not going to show up there. That's a whole different path somebody would have to choose to go down.
I think green
right?
roofs are in there.
Is
Yeah,
it?
they would be in there.
Oh, okay. Okay.
As an option.
I wasn't sure.
It's
So,
pretty broad
Okay.
array of different type treatments.
So pervious
I could be
pavement,
wrong on
things like that,
First
that's in
paving,
there
I
too?
know is in there.
Okay.
Rain gardens,
okay,
rain barrels are even in there.
okay,
It's pretty diverse
okay.
potpourri of treatments.
Now, in regards to developments that are doing LID, there's a very extensive LID plan for Willow Bend. That is the 7.7 acres in the Walker Park neighborhood. It's being developed by Partners for Better Housing. That's a project that's, they're seeking to build about 80 units, a quarter of which will be affordable, which is 80% or less of median income, a quarter which are attainable, which is between 80 to 100% of median income, and then a quarter, or I'm sorry, and then a third of the market rate, so a third. So, and they're really doing nice designs based on Ozarks vernacular house types. They're small houses. I think they range between about 600 and 1,200 square feet. And they are incorporating a lot of LID infrastructure into the master plan as well as the street improvements, which the city has committed $1 million to help in the street construction. So that is happening and is a great opportunity to highlight what that can do. As far as money-saving features, the developer on that is John Anderson at, cannot think of.
Anderson Kim.
Anderson Kim.
Maybe that's a good presentation for you all.
That's what I was
is-
thinking
Yeah.
too.
That
That might be a
project.
good start anyway.
Yeah.
If he's, now where, is this that 40 acres or something?
It's about 7.5 acres.
Oh, well, that's not what I'm thinking of
You
then.
know where the senior center is?
I do.
It's one block directly east of the senior center.
Okay, I know that, that land has been there for a while, hasn't it? And it's
Yeah,
always
it's,
been
swamp.
planned for low income or,
Mhm.
Yeah, that's been planned, it's been going on for several years since it was
Right.
purchased for that purpose.
okay, but they're not building yet, are they?
Not yet, no, it's
I think I'll go by there and check that out. I want to make sure I know where it is.
yeah,
So
you
the
can't,
block
actually,
over-
there aren't any roads into it right now. It's kind
Okay, well, I
of
think
a
we
mid-block area.
I think we cleared it out one year.
Yes.
Project.
Yeah.
Is
With
that
the
what I'm
students.
thinking about? Yeah, okay, I know where that is.
I was a part of that.
Yeah.
Were you there, were you in on that?
Yes,
too?
I met you that day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It was a long time
I was
ago.
over there, yeah, that was a while back. Okay, I just want to make sure, because I was wondering, okay, and so they're going to do some housing for people, so people,
Yeah.
low-income people can afford it?
Yeah.
'Cause I'm seeing South Fayetteville eke up toward,
Yeah,
Low-income
there's a lot of
people can afford
gentrification happening, and this is
Okay.
really designed as workforce housing.
good.
And that's Partners for Better Housing,
Okay.
Community by Design, and Anderson Kim are all working on that project.
Yeah, I'd like to hear from,
Yeah, and I think that would be good if we could get them to come and talk to us about what role
We could
LID
likely get
plays in
Rob
that.
Sharp,
And Brian Teague, maybe?
and potentially the, Brian, the engineer.
And if we end up with more than one developer coming, that's just fine. I'd like to hear from Sarah Molly.
So, okay, well, we'll just count that as our next step, is we'll try to get a presentation on Willow Bend and what role the LID is expected to play in that development.
And I'd like to collect more sites from you all and bring you back a more complete, comprehensive list to talk about at y'all's next meeting,
Okay,
and see where that goes. Potential map, if you would.
excellent. All right, well, let's move on to the Wildlife Habitat Certification Project. Dana?
Yeah. So, at the last meeting, it was requested that we have an update on the Community Wildlife Habitat Program. So I pulled a few things together and I talked to Terry Lane, who was on EAC for several years and really was the champion for the program. So I know that several of you guys know about this, so feel free to jump in with more information. But just so that we're all on the same page, I was going to just give a little bit of background and then especially talked with Terry today about what's really needed. So we can talk about that. So I'm going to pass these around. I just have a few of them, but this will give you some more information. This was a brochure that was created, the Community Wildlife Habitat Project. EAC actually started working on this back in 2010. And Terry said that she looked at actually Austin, Texas, as an example, and they have a great program. They still have a great program that's about habitats, and saw that the National Wildlife Federation can certify not only individual properties but also whole communities. So it became a goal of the EAC to make Fayetteville the first community certified by National Wildlife Federation in the state of Arkansas. So worked towards that goal. And what was required of that was having over 200 individual homes, residences certified as habitat areas by National Wildlife Federation. It needed over 5 schools and over 6 common areas. We well surpassed the schools and the common areas with that. And then there was also the educational component, so there were several workshops that were offered in the community about wildlife habitat. There were work days that were coordinated, especially with Fayetteville Natural Heritage Association and some other groups, to remove invasives and to plant things and stuff that is happening anyway in the community, but it was all tied with the Habitat Project. So the city of Fayetteville became Community Wildlife Habitat Certified in May of 2012, and there was a ceremony. The national representative came, and big deal about that. Mayor Jordan went down to, I guess we went to Benton or Bryant. Bryant. Yeah, for a ceremony too, and he got an award, and so there was a big to-do about becoming the only city in the state that is community habitat certified. So once you are certified as a community, there's not a whole lot that you have to do, but there is expectation that there is some maintenance on that certification. And the city actually passed a resolution saying that EAC is responsible for maintaining that community certification. So as our committee, it's our responsibility to be doing this. So I talked with Terry a little bit about what's needed, and National Wildlife Federation has a point system. So there's a whole menu of different things that you can do each year to maintain your certification, and that includes continuing to have more residences, public areas, and schools certified as habitat area. It can also be doing some educational sessions. So that has actually been happening. Terry's been organizing the Habitat Speaker Series each season. So roughly, well, I guess it's not each season, twice a year, there's a Habitat speaker. They've done them at the Fayetteville Library. You can also get points for maintaining a website, which I asked Peter to pull this site up. This is obviously on the city website, Community Habitat Project, and this was created several years ago. It could use some updating. It could also probably be more prominent. I just searched for it, but I don't actually know where it is on the website.
That might be one thing we need to think about.
One thing to update.
Yeah, there you go.
There's some contact information on there. It's also something too there, it's not linked to the EAC website. That would be something, and this may be, Peter, in light of what you just said about the city moving to a new content management system, something that we probably shouldn't update this website necessarily, but if we can make sure that that's included in the conversations about this needs to be transitioned, migrated over to the new CMS and updated as well. There's also, let's see, so I said the speaker series, continuing to get more people certified, updating the website. You can also get points for designating areas as kind of another level of habitat would be designating public spaces as wildlife refuges. So instead of just a certified habitat area, actually going that farther step, which there's been some discussion of that at Lake Fayetteville, so that could be one avenue. There's also a program that you can have habitat stewards. So in our community, Joyce Mendenhall actually went through the program and is a certified habitat steward.
Wow.
I had no idea. But that could be something else that I'm just kind of throwing out some different ideas. Not that we would need to do all of these, but this is all stuff that can help to maintain that certification and also bring some awareness back about the program because it has been a few years.
If you'll scroll down to where it says, no, scroll the other way. Yeah, right there, wildlife habitat. That you can put in your yard too if you've got, if you've done the steps, which are really easy.
Right.
I mean, if you're feeding the birds or there's just, it's a pretty easy process, making sure there's water available for even the little critters on the ground and that kind of stuff. And
I think they make fancier looking signs too if you wanted one for your house.
yeah, and I couldn't find that.
Oh, really? It seems like you can order different ones once you...
I thought that was, I looked for the
I haven't looked
fancier one,
lately,
I
but-
didn't find it, but actually I kind of like that one in my garden.
Well, and it's a
It's
good
okay.
example, I think, of what we were talking about earlier with LID. Here's a program that we have this model in place of all of these certified places, and there is signage. So there's that signage. We have this at the schools, which is a little bit larger sign. That one's actually at Butterfield too. But
Yep.
there's some different sites. I mean, this. If we were going to make a map, for LID, maybe we also want to think about making a map for certified habitat public areas or
Right.
something.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of opportunity with this program that we've already started. We just need to figure out as a committee what do we want to keep doing. And also, Terry said that she's happy to come speak to the group if we want more details, more brainstorming or anything. She now, since she works for the Land Trust and has a full-time job, when she was doing a lot of this, she was volunteer, and she was awesome, and she was doing it like a job. But she now would like to pass it along to someone on EAC to help take the lead and be our coordinator. And I'm not volunteering for that.
We're all looking at you.
I know, but I'm not.
Apparently Richard's volunteering.
Richard's
Yeah, volunteering.
Asking for an opportunity to speak. Could we go back up a little bit? There was an area, can you show us where it was talking about neighborhood associations? Yeah, I believe it might be down now.
Neighborhoods.
No, it's a little farther, I think back down. It's could contact Terry. Here, hold still.
Yes.
Okay, I mentioned last time that I believe there is some work being done in communications office here at the city about identifying neighborhood associations and how they are operating, which is probably social media now. I think that's the trend, and I'm thinking that would be a marvelous opportunity to see how that's coming along over there, how neighborhoods are being blocked out and understood by the city demographics, and this is kind of a bridge over to getting that organized list, or what do you ever want to call it, finding the contact people and selling this through that way as well.
That's a good idea.
Or, you know, it would be great if we had our Emmy Award winners over at the
Oh my gosh, did you
TV
guys hear
station
about
to
that?
make a
It's
little
fantastic.
video about this to
Mhm.
help educate. That way, we don't have to keep going out and giving the talks over and over again. But if we had a, you know, 2-minute, 3-minute video that we could share to help educate people. That way, it could be shared on social media, it could be showed at a neighborhood meeting.
Yeah. At the neighborhood meetings. a good
So
idea.
this little paragraph here about requesting this media package could be something we could sponsor.
Yeah, we're supposed to be sponsored.
And there's a little bit less, I think, of that, of going to the neighborhoods now. There was a big push when they needed 200 homes to certify, because it's homes, you have to self-certify, you fill out the form and send your information in. But it still, I think, is important for continuing the education and having more. I would wonder, you know, making a video, if we could get Terry involved in that, because she
Yeah, I
does a
think-
great presentation.
She does.
I think neighborhoods would like to have something besides Crime Watch on their agendas. You know, something positive and something, and there might be even some competition come out of that. People
I think that would be a great thing at a neighborhood meeting. Great.
So too.
So,
I know, I'd love to show something like that at our ward meeting coming up on Thursday, if we had that, some of this kind of content available.
and you, I mean, just because we got 200 doesn't mean we can't have more. Like
No.
everybody on the Environmental Action Committee, it would always be a good idea to become certified, which you just get online, follow the list, and fill out your form, and send in your $20 or whatever it is. I can't remember.
It's $20.
And the National Wildlife Federation tracks it for you. They're keeping up with like how
Yes.
many from this area.
They do. So they track it by zip code. So everything that is considered Fayetteville. So it's not necessarily city limits, but it's by our zip codes. And there was someone, a staff person at the National Wildlife Federation, who oversaw this community program. They have lost a lot of their funding and no longer have that position, but they still have someone who does programming for National Wildlife Federation. So and that's another thing that needs to be done, is to reestablish connection with National Wildlife Federation, and just even check in, how many, you know, what's our number now? And that could be something
Right.
to update and to keep that momentum going as well, because we don't know exactly at this point how many are certified in the community, just know that it's over the
Over
requirement.
200, yeah.
The initial requirement. And also, I should say, on the common areas, that included most of our parks within the city became certified as part of this program, which is another thing highlighting. We talked about Gully Park with the LID features, but there's also a lot of habitat features in most of our city parks as well.
I think I filled it out for tricycle, but we didn't ever buy the sign.
Yeah.
I think
Well,
you have
that's
to pay for
extra.
the sign or
You have to pay
something.
for the
Yeah.
sign.
You get
Yeah.
a certificate
Yeah.
with a good
I think I did the
display.
same thing for my house, but I never did pay for the sign.
I did the same, and I think you actually have to pay the $20 to get it certified.
You do.
Yeah.
Which is
And the
why
sign
I
is
didn't
extra.
So I think it's
certify mine.
50 to get your sign.
It is.
Yeah.
It is for
Oh, it's
the
like-
not as, well,
And there was a time too where FNHA, maybe some private citizens had sponsored the fee to get some more people
Who did
certified.
that?
So
was that Ozark Natural Foods did that? Is that what you
That was
said?
FNHA.
Oh,
I
the
think it was
Heritage.
FNHA, yeah,
Oh,
Fayetteville
okay.
Natural Heritage
Yes,
Association.
okay. I knew
Um,
somebody did.
So if there was, I mean, if there was strong interest in the community again, of people who wanted to certify but couldn't, then that could be something that the EAC could help facilitate, finding some people to pay that $20 or to do something. So what's really needed, though, is, I think, a champion on this committee who is passionate about this and wants to be the leader, and then figure out, you know, what the next things are.
Do we have any volunteers?
I don't know how much time is involved. You know, it doesn't sound horrible, but I don't have any time. But it's really neat. I'd like to do it, you know, and I'd like to get in touch with the neighborhood associations too. That's pretty interesting.
Would this be a good project for a green team to take on?
Yeah.
maybe.
That's going to be hard. I'll have to take it for Dan as far as hard to do as far as the green team goes. but-
Yeah, it probably would be, it'd be pretty hard. Students were definitely involved in certifying their own schools and continuing to work to improve the habitat at their site. But I think it would be a little tough.
The schools in the city were awesome about this. The hardest part was getting about those land, those 200 citizens, getting, and mainly that was just getting the word out and getting, because lots of people wanted to do it, but, getting them to get the form, making it as easy as possible.
And I think that $20, that's a barrier. It was a barrier for me.
It is, well,
And,
and I'm assuming that's,
Well, if you're around Terry, you'll do it.
yeah, Terry, she's a great,
She definitely is a champion.
You know, about the 2001 or 2002, we had a crisis with red oaks in the area. There was a big scare about them dying off. And so the county agent supplied some other kinds of oak trees from China. And I got about 5 of them, and they said that these will start creating acorns in 7 years. And sure enough, they did. I had a few acorns in the 7th year. This year has been a acorn fest. It is just about finished up. And those rascals have, I was transplanting some iris on the other side of the yard. There was nothing there but Bermuda grass. And as I was digging it up, I was finding acorns the squirrels had buried. So this was how many years down the road from that, and I think my squirrel population has doubled or tripled.
pretty happy right now.
From a non-native oak tree, basically?
Well,
That's the problem?
I didn't want to point that out, but,
Well, I noticed the word China
Well,
there.
internationally,
well, the scare was that we weren't going to have any mast, the term they use, of the stuff that falls to the forest floor for everyone to eat. And they definitely connected. That was a good strategy. If it had played out, if you had needed to use those, that would have worked pretty well.
Well, I think that's a good example of, this program, I think it goes to the education at the residential level, and, any individual property by itself is not going to have a huge impact, but when we look at the connectiveness of all of these individual properties creating habitat, improving habitat, then it really makes a difference for our community, and that was the intent.
Yeah.
And I think that's, if we continue to focus on educating people about what can they do at their location to do that.
Yeah, the point about those trees, the other point is that they're teenagers now, and took a lot of work to keep those rascals alive. It's been some hard years. You had to stay with them and keep them watered and so forth. They're pretty independent now, though.
Do you think Terry has time to come and talk to us, or do you think she's swamped? Or?
Yeah, she said she definitely has time to come and talk. I didn't schedule it for this time because I didn't know how much time I wanted to commit to it. I don't know that she's available for November, but maybe
I
for
think we're doing.
December. It sounds like
Are we doing something else in November?
LID.
LID, yeah, thank you.
So she could definitely talk and could share some more information if you feel like that's what you want.
I just thought if she came and explained, I mean, you did a great job of explaining, but I know she's been doing the work,
Yeah.
so then it would be a little clearer as to who might want to be the champion.
Maybe when
And
Angela's back.
I would also say that the champion might need a couple helpers too, so maybe we could, a small committee.
A team. I'll be on the team.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's
Yeah.
think in terms of team, and then that might work, and maybe Dana would help fill in some of the gaps if that,
I'd be more likely to volunteer for a team.
For a team, yeah.
so.
Well, the other thing too, I'll just mention is, so Austin, obviously, much larger community, but they actually have a staff person who helps with this as well. And I know that, I said that to Terry, was asking, is there any possibility for like a staff person committing some time to it? When this first came up in 2010 with the city, they did say that they wanted to ensure that this didn't require any staff time, that it was a fully volunteer-based program. now that the city has become certified and has seen how much has happened and it has gotten some really good national press, I don't know if that would be something that would be revisited. Again, the amount of time that's put into it is based on how much you want to do. You could commit a lot of time to it. But if we could also just decide what are the things that we feel are the most important to accomplish each year, then that could help define how much time.
And this, I mean, I'm thinking about this map that we're doing, this all plays a role in the star pointed, I mean, not that we're doing this for the points, but to increase our status and for others to realize this is a good thing.
Well, you bring up a good point, and how do we feel about just kind of, let's put our thinking caps on about this over the next month, and then let's move on to these other 2 agenda items, and then maybe we'll find some tie-ins between all of this. And was
Sounds
there
like
more
there's
that you
a
want?
lot. No, just the last thing, I'll just pass these around. If you haven't seen these, if you want more information, these are both great brochures on wildscaping with Ozark native plants and the Ozark friendly landscape. And this one actually has EAC on the back, so at some point we were, I'm not sure if anybody remembers how we were involved in creating this, but the committee was. So they're good resources, though, if you. That's it. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thanks for your
I
help.
would suggest, if I may, if we get enough copies of these, this in particular, which we used to have, I've still got a good many, I guess, but they're here and there. Just take 10 and go to every house in your neighborhood. And if you know the people, it's easier to talk to them, but that one-on-one's what works the best. And so it's kind of like running an election campaign that you see everybody doing right now.
Yeah, which is
Go
not.
visit them. And I put one of these up in the post office when they first came out, in 10 or whenever it was. And about every month, I'll pin up the other side. Well, finally, about a week or so ago, it disappeared off the bulletin board in the post office. And so I brought another one out of my truck or the car, posted it back up. We'll see if it'll stay 4 years. I hope so. But if you try it, you may find you can do your neighborhood that way. And that's confidence about what you say. And the reduction in expense for mowing is one of the biggest things. If people realize they could set aside a native plant area instead of having to mow that, spin that, pollute the air and so forth. It's just like low impact development. It can be much cheaper if you do it in the front end.
I mean, but Aubrey raised a good point about the neighbors. If we could come up with some kind of a presentation, or whether that's a video or something, we have ward meetings, and I would
Yes.
love to have this to present at a ward meeting, if one of you guys wanted to come and talk about it. In fact, I'm going to take a couple of these brochures and make them available for the ward meeting.
Well, let's get Terry here, because I wouldn't mind with a team member presenting at one of these. I mean, and so especially if there's a meeting there already. I'm not a door-to-door person. I want the group to come to me. Oh, when is this happening? I ran in this.
Or somehow, I mean, I certified Haas Hall and had no idea that we were a community wildlife habitat project. I just did it on my own because I thought it was a good thing to do.
And you already were one?
No, I didn't know that the community
Oh,
was.
I see.
just did it on my own because I thought it was a neat thing to do. So it'd be neat
That's
if
even
every
wonderful.
year we did like a blitz saying, hey, it's time.
And how many people are on? Are all the schools on, except for the high school?
In Fayetteville School District, we have 8 of 14 schools that are certified.
Well, then there's 6 more to go. Yeah, okay.
Okay, moving on. Let me get back to my agenda here. So in new business, I want to talk about LID and city infrastructure projects. And this kind of ties into where Garnet was going. But, we're building a lot of sidewalks and trails, and I think that while our city staff is definitely incorporating some LID features into them, they could use a little more encouragement and support in doing more. We're going to be putting, one project in particular that appeals to me is we're going to be putting new sidewalks along the east side of South School Avenue this next year.
The east side.
So like in front of City Lumber and the parts store. And, is there an opportunity to incorporate some LID features into that streetscape? Although the challenge being that is a state highway, so that could be an issue. But, maybe instead of dealing with stormwater, maybe it's an opportunity for a pollinator pathway and incorporating some native vegetation and creating a beautiful vegetated landscape that could connect all the way up, and creating a pollinator pathway up South School Avenue from maybe the town branch crossing all the way up to the public library. And that's the kind of thing that would really beautify, as well as helping with some native landscaping. What do you guys think about that? And-
Yes.
I like the
Yes.
idea.
I think it's a great idea. How do we do it?
Yeah, so how do we do it, I guess is the question. Peter, do you have any insight into how we might accomplish something like that?
Probably need to sit down and have a conversation with development services and engineering and kind of figure out what the right-of-way looks like through there. I mean, the space constraints, I think, are going to definitely govern what the range of possibilities are, so that'd be a good starting place.
What's your northern limit?
I think they're taking it all the way up to where Archibald Yell turns off. I've got a copy of the engineering drawings. I don't have them with me right now, but it is so constrained that's why I didn't think trees were necessarily. I don't know that trees are possible in that strip, but if we had some perennials, something smaller, I think would be better. And I just think, if there were some opportunity for swales or just to slow the storm water down a little bit, or a place something that catches the cigarettes in the plastic bags before they get into the town branch, because it's easier to clean out the swale than it is the creek.
Well, I can't picture how much room there is. So it's sidewalk width, not bike path width.
Right, it's
probably not.
5-foot sidewalks
Okay.
is what they have plans.
And whenever they do something like that, the mowing or maintenance goes back to the property owner, right? So the city doesn't mow these things once they're put in, right?
Well, that's a problem, because we don't have enough mowing staff, although there's sometimes an expectation that the city should do it. But so I think what we could do is develop a care agreement with the adjacent property owner. I know in Seattle, whenever they would do LID streetscapes, the adjacent property owners would attend a class and they would agree to care for it, and there was actually an agreement that they would sign, and maybe that's something that this committee could help develop.
Yeah, that might be, because I was thinking, like the highway department has their required mixtures of seeds and stuff now for highway projects, that have certain, wildflowers in them, and then they're supposedly only mow once a year now, instead of keeping the grass or weeds mowed all the time. And so I was wondering about, the same kind of thing, just seeding whatever green space you got, seeding it with, the same wildflower mix, they've got their specified mix that you go out and order.
Yeah, because, if we could help the city reduce its mowing expenses,
Right,
that would
right.
be a fantastic goal.
Right, but that's why I wasn't sure if the city even would be responsible for mowing it or not, or if it's up to the landowner.
As far as I know, I don't think the city mows South School Avenue, because it's pretty much dirt tracks and
Is there anything green there?
asphalt. There's
Yeah.
there's almost nothing green there. It's
Okay.
really
Well, it's
a
state highway,
leak,
so-
and it's state highway, that's
They
true.
mow 15th, State Highway Department.
They do what?
They mow 15th Street, anything that's a highway.
15th, but not school.
Yeah, there's nothing to mow,
State-
but it's a
like
state
you say,
highway.
There's not much to do on
So,
these stretches.
okay, when they put the sidewalks in, will the state have anything to do with that as far as?
No, that's gonna be
That's-
city
that's
funded.
city
That's
funded.
the Ward 1 sidewalk allotment.
Okay, and where's it going to start, at 15th?
Right now, I think it goes all the way down to 15th, and it goes as far up. I'm not sure if it's just to MLK if it goes up to Archibald Yale. I don't
You're not
recall
sure.
that.
Okay. God, they need something there. That's wonderful they're doing.
Yeah, I've been begging for this since I've been
Well,
elected.
That's wonderful.
And unfortunately, the plan is just for one side of the street at this point.
Oh, that's a start.
Yeah. So, I guess it's, even if we don't necessarily tackle that one, I guess what role can this committee play in helping utilize, whether it's wildlife habitat or LID, to improve our city infrastructure projects and hopefully reduce the cost to the city to maintain them and beautify our community? And maybe we could have some education along these if we did have a pollinator pathway, and label some of the plants and have a sign that talks about the role of pollinators in our ecology. So that's one idea. The other would be, we have these beautiful trail systems, and Fayetteville doesn't really have a museum. Can we create a living history museum along our trail system to educate people about the ecology of our region, about caring for it, the low impact development, about wildlife? What are your thoughts on that?
That would be beautiful. I think the community would really enjoy that too.
You just mean through signage?
It could be through signage. It could maybe eventually be through some projects to help mitigate some of the environmental issues we're having.
Do you know cities that have done that? Is there anywhere where we could see something?
Seattle had done a good job with their pollinator pathway project. That they actually hired an artist who did that project, and so maybe it's something that we would work with I would hope we would work with an artist on to do it really well. I don't know of any other cities who are doing that. Does anyone?
So in a pollinator pathway, you're going to have to tell me what that means.
It basically is a continuous strip of native plants that attract pollinators, and basically they would link parks with them, so that it would be, the food forest is linked to the city park, is linked to the waterway or something. So
You could go to, could you link like to Walker Park? Or
yes, we
something?
could link to Walker Park. We could link the library to Walker Park.
Okay.
I think maybe Santa Rosa has something like that in California. We could even put some little kind of PSA-like things out on the trail
Mm-hmm.
with regard to resilience and,
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a really cool idea, to have some signage out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that too. So do you work with the engineers on something like this? Who do you work with in the city?
I think we'd have to work with the engineers. I think we would have to coordinate with or get some kind of approval from the Arts Committee or the Arts Commission if we actually start doing public art to educate people about it, which I think we should.
So public art in the sense of the signage?
The signage or some interpretive sculpture. Who knows what it could be? Or it could even be sculptural filtration elements to help clean the water.
We have, I don't know if we talked about this or not, but we do have an art project with whatever those boxes are that are like transformer boxes,
Oh, yeah. The transformer.
And that's done with local artists. I don't know if you've noticed them on Dixon, and also they're going on to Lafayette to keep, Sergeant Montgomery is in charge of that, and he's done a wonderful job in doing that through Keep Fayetteville Beautiful. But also, local artists have volunteered their time for free to do those boxes, and as a result, you don't have anybody doing the, putting any stuff on
The graffiti.
Yeah, the graffiti or whatever on there. And I think they're beautiful. They've even used several that are from the women's prison. So I think there's lots of ways you could do that,
Mm-hmm.
and include your whole community in it, because we're doing it.
And, and this is something, if we were to conceive of this project and put it together, maybe we can apply for a grant, because I'm not a fan of using artist labor for free.
No, we're not
yeah.
either. We're really not.
Mhm.
And, but we don't have a choice.
Yeah.
So.
And, maybe tying it to tourism, because this certainly could be a tourism draw. And, you know, I've been seeing there's a lot of kind of junky properties and things down there that maybe could be cleaned up and art could be created with the trash. So we're diverting auto parts from landfills and
You're
creating,
talking about South Fayetteville.
Mhm. in particular, South Fayetteville, but really kind of all along Fayetteville. Can we turn waste products into art and make it nature-inspired art and use it as an opportunity to educate people about ecology and the environment?
I think that's doable.
It looks like there is actually a pollinator pathway program.
Hey, there we go.
Hey,
Yeah.
Google.
So it's, maybe this, we can add this to our homework to look at more of it. It looks like it actually is a certification program. That's exactly what you're talking about. Connect fragmented landscapes, working across multiple scenarios and landscape types, and following specified standards for ecological health. So somebody's trying to do this as a national program. I just pulled that up.
Are there any cities around us that are doing it? Can you tell?
I don't know. Like I said, I just Googled.
Okay, all right.
So we'd have to look, but it may be something that could look at, might be some great examples already out there.
Mhm.
Maybe there's some tools that say how you can really do more of this. I wonder too if this ties in, or if it could tie in somehow. Our regional planning commission has just started, they're doing an open space plan for Benton and Washington County. Have you heard about this?
No.
So open space plan for Benton and Washington County, they just, they had put out their RFP and Alta Planning has won the bid for it. So they'll start, I think their goal actually is to start doing some type of public input sessions potentially by the end of the year. And basically the idea is to do, they're calling it an open space plan, it's like the green infrastructure plan that Fayetteville has, but taking a more regional approach. And something like this, I feel like could definitely
Mhm.
fit in with that.
So who would we contact to be part of that? Because I've not heard anything about it.
So Regional Planning Commission.
Okay.
What is open space plan? Just planning for the region or something more specific?
So I haven't read the RFP, so I don't know fully what it is, but from what I have looked at and what I've heard, they are going to do an inventory of natural assets. So it's a lot of looking at what open space already exists, what corridors. It's a lot of this looking at habitat and green infrastructure, and what currently exists, where are there opportunities for connection, where are there areas that could or should be conserved in some way. Mostly, that's what it is. And then it's a plan to it's a lot of assessment, identify what's there, what could and should be.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like it goes along with the natural habitat, and it also goes along with the LID. It sounds like this all just interconnects beautifully. So, yeah, works.
Okay.
Well, if I may, the connection with code enforcement, which a lot of people are so intimidated from the past that they mow more than once a week, and so sometimes when it's dry, you don't see any change in the grass height, you know, to clip it off. But they should, from the very beginning that we had this program for habitat, should have had literature in the hands of code enforcement people when they go out and say, well, you haven't mowed your grass, before they put up a sign saying you're a criminal in your yard, and threaten to have it, I don't know, lien put on it or something. They would tell you that you can follow this program and have native plants, you declare it to be wildlife habitat, and you take the effort and a little bit of money, and you go out and pick wildflower seeds everywhere in the summer, you know, where to look. And they should be part of this. They shouldn't be the enemies of it. I get things from people in other towns all the time about how, well, they just came and just mowed my flower garden.
Mhm.
You know, my front yard was all these native species. And it happened in Little Rock. There was a big scandal with some people putting it on the internet a year or so ago. But there's no reason code enforcement couldn't share that information and reduce their workload once somebody's got that sign out there and they show that they are raising big blue stem grass tall, and it's not Bermuda grass or some other invasive that they're lying, or Johnson grass, which is hideous invasive. And the city, I'm told that the city and highway department and county and so forth still seed with non-native species when they do a project. And you see this stuff coming up, instead of a chance to put in a native mix, they put in this stuff that they say will prevent erosion in a hurry, but what you've got is something you can't get rid of, and it's not that effective. It's a root structure of some kind that's permanent, and the perennial native species provide that. While I'm on that, if anybody wants some milkweed seed, this is common milkweed. I'll give you part of this pod, or one person all of it. Nobody, you don't need all
Milkweed
of it.
for the
Monarch
butterfly, for the
caterpillars that
monarchs.
eat-
Okay,
yes,
yeah, okay.
uh-huh.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so as far as where we want to go with this at this point, there's some interest in reducing mowing and maintenance for city infrastructure. And so that might be working with our street department or transportation department. And then there is interest in maybe becoming a certified pollinator pathway, or developing that project, and then also in touching base with the Regional Planning Commission on their open space inventory plan that they're
Kind of
working.
open space plan.
Okay, open space plan. Okay, anything else on those topics before we move on? All right, let's go and talk about the Fayetteville Star certification, which is very exciting.
You guys still want to do that? No, we're almost done.
We
Wait,
do it fast.
how long do you think it'll take?
I could probably do 10 minutes or so.
Then let's just do it.
I'm gonna take a really quick break. and I'll be
All
right
right.
Get our screen back.
While we're waiting on the screen, does anyone have any announcements or events?
I handed out the brochure, went around for the Veterans 5K coming up on the 8th, and there's so many prizes that you just go and sign up and walk, and you're the last one, still get a door prize of value. Yeah.
I've run that race.
I know.
Yeah, it's fun. Oh, yeah, you saw me there.
Oh, yeah, I'm always taking pictures. I never.
All right, and when is, that's November 8th?
8th, Saturday morning, in front of National Cemetery on Government Avenue.
Okay, and then,
That is very fun. It's a great.
It's gonna be flatter this year, too.
Oh, they're not gonna do the
Yeah,
same
they're
trail? Oh,
doing-
good.
oh,
God,
You don't have to go downtown, up the hill and back.
Is it a 10K?
It's 5K,
Oh, it's a 5. I thought,
but it'll take you up as far as Razorback Road on the new trail.
Told us what points we got. How would I access that to just see?
It's online. Yeah, I can show you where that's at.
okay, here.
So in August, the City of Fayetteville was awarded a 3-star certification through the Star Communities Rating Program. STAR stands for Sustainable Tools for Assessing and Rating Communities. It's essentially a community sustainability rating developed for communities, by communities. When I say community, city and county generally are the applicants on STAR. But it creates a level playing field across 7 broad categories for rating sustainability for communities. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Fayetteville's STAR rating. So again, here's the acronym, Sustainable Tools for Assessing and Rating Communities. And several reasons why a community would want to embark on what I would call a fairly involved process of collecting data and information about themselves and reporting that to STAR. But it does create quantifiable results, creates a nice level playing field for all communities because we're all talking about the same rating system. It can help guide new investments and future progress, and help improve and create a roadmap for economic prosperity and community involvement as well. The 7 goal areas of STAR, here they are: built environment, economy, and jobs. Well, you can read them all, but they're, like I said, fairly diverse and broad across a wide spectrum of very different aspects of what community sustainability is really all about. And so, again, these are across broad areas for the entire community of Fayetteville, not just the city government or city government operations, but this takes into account our school system, our employers, our healthcare system, many diverse areas. If you take those 7 areas, they get broken down into much more detailed subcategories. So, for example, under the built environment, there's discussion about the community's water system and water supply, what that looks like, how secure it is, how clean it is, how equitable access to our water supply is, and that can be said for many of these different areas. There's a lot of opportunity. You don't have to report on all of them. You can only report on ones that you have strengths in, and then ones that you're not able to report in. Obviously, help you identify some of your community's weaknesses and areas to focus on for potential improvement. I mentioned that it's a community stakeholder involvement. We had a wide variety of both municipal stakeholders, so city departments and divisions, and then community stakeholders across the entire community of Fayetteville. The reporting process was sort of co-led by Michelle Hossel and the Applied Sustainability Center at the University of Arkansas, with myself and Leif Olson leading the charge from the city of Fayetteville. So we work collaboratively with the Applied Sustainability Center and all of these stakeholders to gather data on the city and do the city's reporting. As I mentioned, we were awarded a 3-star community, which officially certifies Fayetteville as a national leading community in sustainability. Here's how we scored in those 7 goal areas and the highlighted areas under built environment, economy and jobs, arts, education and community, health and safety, and natural systems are areas where we did fairly well, with arts and culture, arts, education and community being the area where we scored the highest of all the areas. And we did well. For example, under our built environment category, we scored really well because we have a lot of open space and park space in our city. Our water system also is quite strong, and that helped us score well there. Under economy and jobs, a lot of the good work that our Chamber of Commerce does for job development helped us score really strongly there. Arts and culture, where we scored the absolute best. We did well because of a lot of the good work that our Walton Arts Center does for us, and a lot of the other arts amenities that are in Fayetteville. Under health and safety, we did well there. Our farmers market helped us score well under that category. Some of our emergency prevention and response helped us score there as well. Under natural systems, much of the work that's being done that's now codified under LID and green infrastructure helped us score well there, as well as our air quality and some strengths in working lands. We didn't do as well under the climate and energy and the equity and empowerment categories. We were a little weak under climate and energy due to lack of having a climate adaptation plan and not having robust greenhouse gas reporting. And under the equity and empowerment category, where we actually scored the lowest, it's a category that was really tough for a lot of cities. So sort of the consolation prize is that no community really did very well under equity and empowerment.
That's terrible.
It's
That is
It-
terrible.
I don't know that it's necessarily terrible in that our communities aren't equitable, but they set a pretty high bar. STAR set a very high bar under equity and empowerment, and I think it's an area that traditionally hasn't seen a whole lot of focus for a lot of communities, particularly in some of the areas that they have set forth for potential for improvements. In fact, one of the categories, environmental justice, that's on there is one that we didn't get any points in, and it's an interesting analysis that we did and actually made a recommendation back to STAR in changing their methodology. The whole score of environmental justice is based on how many brownfield or Superfund sites your community has. Well, Fayetteville doesn't really have many or any, with the exception of the electroplate plant that has not been cleaned up in our industrial park. So a combination of how many sites you have that are contaminated and how close people live to those sites, particularly low-income people. And our site was down in our industrial park, which doesn't have anybody living near it. And so we didn't have any environmental justice issues, but we also weren't able to score any points because we don't have any
Because you
environmental.
didn't fix any.
Yeah, because we didn't fix any, exactly, because we didn't have any.
Really?
So we made that recommendation back. Well, if you don't have any, is it still possible to score some points there? And they're looking at a potential change under that area.
Well, it's not too far from your water supply.
That's a good point. It definitely could
It's right on-
impact our water
It's
supply.
right
Banks
on
of
it.
the West
True.
Fork
Well, what
Library.
about civil and human rights? I'm-
Yeah, there's a whole litany of points related to,
Like you have to have rules codified to get points for them.
and living wage. If you had any kind of legislation related to living wage in your community, that would score you points under equity and empowerment.
Now with the new diversity ordinance.
Yeah, that
Probably
ordinance
get some
points.
definitely would score some points under that
So that would
category.
score.
Yeah, plus we're working on a
Stamps.
climate adaptation plan.
Yeah, so many of these are areas where, there's work already being done or a potential for improvement. As well as in some of the other categories that we score well, there's some other opportunities for improvement under the climate and energy category. Also, our waste reduction and recycling master plan that we're just beginning the process on, that can score some points there.
Pace?
Pardon me?
Did Pace didn't help at all?
I don't recall that. I don't know. I can't remember if PACE scored us anything. It
Well,
may.
we don't have an active program yet,
Yeah.
although we did hire an administrator.
Yes.
So that has been done.
I'd have to look back into the details, Joanna.
What's innovation in process?
Innovation and process is kind of like a extra points category. So we
Okay.
scored a few points there. Our green MLS got us some points under innovation and
neat.
process.
That's cool.
And there was one other item there that got us points that's escaping me at the moment, but I know the green MLS was one we submitted and got points for. Here are other communities across the country that have been certified under STAR. So there's 3, 4, and 5-star communities. You can see the spread of the 3, 4, and 5-star communities. There's 20 communities to date that have been certified. Many of them are the who's who of sustainable communities across the country. 2 5-star communities, Northampton, Massachusetts, which is a small town of about 25,000 people, and one large city, Seattle, have been both certified as 5-star. Fayetteville was the 17th community to receive STAR certification, and we were actually the fastest city, start to finish, to complete our STAR certification.
Go Melody.
Which is something that many of the next class of STAR communities that are coming on board are very interested in how we were able to do our certification so quickly and trying to replicate that streamlined process.
This is a full-time staff person.
Yeah.
I'm looking at Washington DC and it got 4 stars.
Yeah.
We're right up there with Cleveland. Off of the Cuyahoga River, which
I'm just trying to visualize DC's, well, never mind.
40 plus years ago.
I think they've cleaned that river up a little bit.
Extra points for improvement if your river
Maybe
catches.
that's
Yeah,
it.
they
Maybe
probably
that's
did
it.
get some
Yeah,
environmental
I had
justice
river to
points out
start
there.
out
That's where
with.
that's not
Okay, because
Yeah.
I'm like,
So what's next? How are we going to use this rating system? For us, it's really a benchmark, and a roadmap. Michelle Hossel uses this excellent example that I'll try and replicate. So the way we're using it as a roadmap is if you are trying to get to Cleveland, all right, you need to know, if you're trying to give somebody directions to Cleveland, well, you need to know where they're at to give them directions. Because if they're in Minneapolis, you give them one set of directions. But if they're in Boston, you're going to give them totally different directions to get to Cleveland, right? So we're using this as a roadmap for how to become a more sustainable community. So now we know where we're at, right? We're at Cleveland, and we're going to use this moving forward. I mentioned some of the areas for improvement and the opportunities where we can focus some of our work. And we'll be continuing to work with many of our stakeholders on specific things that they can help us do to improve our standing and our score. And one of the big areas that we're going to be embarking on starting next summer is going to be with the city plan update. It'll be City Plan 2035 at that point. Many of the categories in the built environment and the climate and energy are that have definite potential to be included in the city plan. And for those who are actually interested in seeing the down and dirty of the details of Fayetteville's score, I'll show you real quick how you can access that information. Oops, this keyboard. So you go to starcommunities.org, all right? And if you scroll down the page, you can search their live map right here. And it brings up this nice little map of all of the communities that are either working on certification, that means they've got a check mark, or they've already been certified. That'd be the communities with the little, whatever, the star, I guess. And so you can click on the one for Fayetteville right here, and you can see our details. And that will give you the breakout for all 7 categories. So under built environment, you can see each of the subcategories, what our actual scores are. You can click on that and you can see how well we scored under outcomes, which are actual measured progress in that area, and actions, which are typically ordinances, resolutions, policy, plans, and you can see which ones we got full credit on or ones we got no credit on. And so you can see that list for both. So for example, public spaces we did really, really well because we provide ample parkland based on our population density. We have much more than 6.8 acres per 1,000 residents.
Yeah.
I remember when Melody discovered that. I was in the
We have like
office.
53 acres per 1,000 residents, so we're like off the
Nice.
charts in terms of our parkland.
Good. Are there non-applicable things, I mean, that, or is that where you lose points if you can't apply? Is that kind of what you were?
Yeah, so the rating goes, I believe there's 720 points total possible. Takes 600 to be a 5-star community, 400 to be a 4-star community, and 200 to be a 3-star community. So yeah, there's plenty of wiggle room.
Yeah,
You don't have to report on every single point even to become a 5-star community.
Now, where do you go? Okay, after I get starcommunities.org, what do I click on to get Fayetteville?
The live map.
So scroll down the page, okay, and there's this search our live database down
map.
here,
Okay, gotcha.
and then that brings you to the map, and you can click on our little icon for us. All right, lots and lots of detail here,
Okay.
and you can compare. You can look at any of the other communities, as well, and see how they scored,
Okay.
and see how Tucson did on equity and empowerment. Well, they actually did all right. They got 54 points. But
That's really neat. Well, you can look and see what they did, and
yeah, you can see where they got their points. Civil human
So
rights.
Tucson is a
There they go.
3-star, 4-star?
They're a 4-star community.
4-star.
Right.
Yeah, so they have a Civil and Human Rights Commission, which is what we've been trying to do.
Which we're
with,
trying to do.
Our anti-discrimination
Yeah.
ordinance 119. So they got full credit for that, and
Yeah.
we are not getting that yet.
they have an
We
office
will.
that can investigate civil and human rights complaints.
Good.
Yeah, so we will too, if we can uphold our anti-discrimination ordinance. But I would suggest that for next time, before next time, that everyone go through this and look at what deficiencies we have relative to this committee. And, you know, we have a lot of projects that we've talked about that we want to do, but maybe this helps us narrow down exactly which ones we get serious about first. You know, the fact that we don't have a climate action plan or climate adaptation plan for the city is worrying. Maybe that's something we should be doing first before we do
Yeah,
anything else.
I would direct you guys to look at the climate and energy section. It's an area we scored low, and I think it's an area that definitely this group has influence and purview over. And then would also direct you to look down at the natural systems section. We did a little better there, but you know, one area where we didn't score any points was invasive species. It's an item we've talked with the mayor about, both in having potential for doing a better job of tracking our invasive species removal work that we already do.
I thought we do some of that.
We do it, we just don't track it and report on it. So some of it is correcting that. Another opportunity is potential for an invasive species ordinance.
Can I
It
ask-
talks about limiting, you know, sale and planting of invasive species in the city.
And you said it's not just the city, I mean, it's all the other stakeholders too,
Yeah.
so, is there an opportunity for bringing in more stakeholders, like Illinois River, you know, watershed, you know,
Yeah,
they've done
sure.
invasive species removal, and Terry Lane's group has been involved in that, so maybe we need more people involved to
Right.
get the
Certainly.
points. Because I know they're doing it, you know,
Well, it sounds like we need to track it too, that's.
right,
Yeah.
right, well, they're tracking, somebody's tracking. it, I
Somebody's
think.
tracking you, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I would suggest we all take a good look at this and, you know, let's start using this as a guide to help us narrow down what projects we're actually going to take. Because, I mean, this is something we could have measurable results, and it'd be nice to have a report at the end of the year that, hey, we're going to be 4 stars instead of 3. So,
Certification is good for 3 years for the city, and so during that 3-year period, we're going to be working to make improvements in areas where we see opportunities and re-reporting and hopefully becoming a 4-star community on our next round, at least a 4-star community.
at least.
Love it.
Okay, so for our next meeting, we hope to have someone here to talk about the LID happenings down at, or plans down at Willow Bend. We can get that set up. And then also, I'll be returning from the National League of Cities Conference in Austin the day before. And so if you're interested in some of the things that I see there, I'm going to tour their, they have a municipal solar energy project that I believe is powering 50,000 homes. I'm going to tour that. Hopefully, I'm going to take a bike tour of all their cycling infrastructure and,
Wonderful.
I bet you
Yeah,
don't
so-
have time to take a tour of all their.
well, yeah.
Where are you?
I challenge
To
you.
Austin,
Okay.
yeah. So the National League of Cities, it's kind of like the municipal league, but on a national level. And every year they host the conference in a different city. Last year it was in Seattle. And so this year it's in Austin. And I'm not sure if I'll have time to get a PowerPoint together that quickly, but I can at least give you a little update on some things that I saw that were relevant to this committee.
So that will be on part of our agenda next time?
If you're interested in hearing about that.
I'd like to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Weren't they a 5-star up there, Austin, or were
They were 4-star.
4-star?
They're
Okay.
4-star.
There you go.
So we can go see what they're doing that we haven't done yet.
We should give a prep presentation sometime here
Mm-hmm.
on our agenda. I was going to ask too, when is the learning about goats workshop that
I
NCAT's
saw
doing?
that somewhere.
It's this Friday. There's a class that we're doing.
I just got the email.
Yeah, I got
yeah.
that too.
Yeah.
NCAT is really, National Center for Appropriate Technology is really putting it on. It's their office this Friday from 9 to noon. The sign-up deadline is actually this coming Wednesday, and there's a $15 charge to cover their expenses for the class. I'll be doing a little information at the very beginning of the class talking about the city's rules related to urban goat keeping. Most of the class is going to actually focus on care and food and, you know, hoof trimming and milking techniques and kind of more of the
So there
down
will,
and dirty, nitty-gritty details.
there will be goats.
There will be goats, yes. There'll be, I believe, both larger goats that are not allowed in the city that are in milk right now, so you can, you know, see milking technique, and then actual smaller pygmy or dwarf goats, the ones that actually are allowed in the city, so you can get more of a sense for scale and size of the type of goats that are allowed in the city.
Do we have anybody that has goats in the city now?
Not to my knowledge.
I didn't.
Not officially.
I've not heard of anybody.
I've been playing phone tag with our animal control office regarding RFID chips and if they've tagged any goats since the ordinance was passed back in March. So I haven't asked them that question yet. Yep. So if anybody wants more details on that, just let me know, and I can get you the flyer or the online registration location for that.
Okay, Aubrey?
One thing I haven't, I think maybe 3 of you guys have commented on the low-impact development concern that's one of mine, and it's having the trails in the riparian zone of the streams. But the extreme versions of that are exemplified by the new trail extension under South School. I'm looking the wrong direction. South School's over here. Anyway, there was multi-feet of water over that trail under that bridge on South College, more than one time in the last few weeks. But I went over there and waded out under the bridge, and the water trail runs downward as it crosses. So the stream's coming down and flowing back around, and I had it up close as I could with my knee boots, I waded that far out so I could get video all around. So it's on YouTube. It's only 2-3 minutes, and you can go to under my name, Aubrey Shepherd, and YouTube, and go back 2 or 3 weeks. There are lots. I post something new every day. But anyhow, they did put up a sign that says, "Trail dangerous when underwater."
I love those signs.
But, the way people ride, and several of you ride bicycles, I know quite a bit, and they get focused, and they're going fast. And if it had been raining and hadn't gone down enough, somebody might have come over and just gone right through that thing. It's not, the other side on the east side's not completed yet, but it's just pure madness to put that, what would we call it, a swimming pool with no fence around it, an attractive nuisance, that you could just go right in there and wash away, because that was powerful water down there. So anyway, that's one of the things that I would hope will get modified, the way we.
I think the city has lots of stretches of our trails that go underwater during high rain events.
Yes, they
It's
do.
not uncommon. Oftentimes, particularly when you're going under an underpass, it's the best use of already disturbed land to go through there. The alternative is trying to build something over a bridge, which would be much more costly. And the amount of time that the trail is underwater is pretty minuscule compared to the amount of time that it's not underwater. And it does require a little bit of maintenance sometimes to clean the trails after they go underwater. We have had several large rain events in the past few weeks, so it probably was underwater a couple of times. But locating trails next to streams makes sense from a grade perspective. It's really gentle sloping terrain, so it makes for easy use. It's very pleasant space to occupy that's, generally underused otherwise. It puts eyes on the trail. It helps get people more interaction with the streams, and often allows for greater visibility of issues like trash in our streams that can facilitate cleanups. And so I don't necessarily think that it's a bad thing to have trails that are along our streams that on occasion go underwater. And it's a really good use of that space.
Well,
This is my 2 cents worth on that.
I understand what you're saying is true. But on the other hand, a person asked me today, why does the city do its projects where the public isn't allowed to make them at streamside? And when we had all those meetings about that ordinance, there were always people saying, well, why do I have to comply with this new ordinance? And it was logical. I mean, we know sewer lines have to go at the lowest place and the levels have to be maintained for miles and miles. But the trails aren't quite that critical. So if we violate a tree ordinance and a streamside
You're
ordinance,
actually not violating the streamside ordinance because there's a specific exemption listed in
That's
there
right,
for
but
trails,
that's
so you're not
still
actually violating the ordinance.
in the mind of somebody who has to follow it on his private property, his backyard has a trail through it, it is violating the ordinance. The ordinance didn't have to be written that way.
Well, from the perspective of a trailside landowner or a creekside owner that's about to get a trail going through my backyard, I would prefer that the trail was closer to the creek because otherwise it eats away too much of my property. But I think that it's, we have to balance a lot of interests, and the city has an interest in alternative transportation and providing alternatives to automobiles. And once we start having to build a new tunnel or a new bridge at every time we want to cross a roadway or a stream, we are really impacting the amount of trail that we can build for our community due to cost. And so I think, we have to balance all of these things, and we make the best choices we can, and we've already got existing infrastructure there, and we can find a higher and better use of it by diverting a trail through it. I think that that's a reasonable strategy, and that's just the point that we're at right now, until somebody wants to come and, drop a couple $1,000,000 for another overpass or tunnel. So I think we're making the best decisions that we can to balance, whether that's the fiscal responsibility and the land use and the environment and the interest in providing public transportation or alternative transportation options. But anyway, it is 7:30. I appreciate all your patience tonight and your participation, and I look forward to the next meeting. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.